Hi, everybody that's already here. I just wanted to pop in a little bit early and see if anybody has any questions. So make sure that all the tech is working here. So I'm super excited to be here. A little echo there. Okay. So super excited to be here and excited to be talking with all of you. So we're going to start the main content of the webinar at 3 o'clock. But I'm going to be here hanging out for the next 15 minutes or so. So pop in. For those of you that are already here, you can go ahead and jump in the live chat. If you're on the witchofloopandhollow.com live page, the chat box is directly below the video. So that if you click in it and you start to participate, it'll make you sign into your Google account, I think is how it works, because YouTube's owned by Google. So you can go ahead and sign in, get all settled, and go ahead and pop into the chat if you have, say hello, have any questions, and then we'll get started at 3 o'clock. So super excited to chat with all of you today. So for those of you that are already here, make sure you jump into the chat box and get signed into Google so you can ask questions and interact with not just me, but with each other too. There's lots of amazing people in this community. So you don't have to just listen to me or even other bloggers, connect with witches that are, not writers necessarily, but are living their own daily lives. So much to learn from each other. So jump in the live chat. Say hello, let me know you're here. I see quite a few of you are already signed in, so super excited. Can't wait to share so much with you guys all about, we're going to talk about journaling, but we're also going to talk about how to have a daily spiritual practice and what that means. So I'm super excited. Thanks for joining me on my first webinar. For those of you that just got here, we'll get started in about 10 minutes, but feel free to pop in the live chat and ask questions. So as people are showing up here, I just want to say hello. I'll formally introduce myself when we really get started. But doing webinars and being live on Instagram and stuff like that, we're living in a pretty amazing time. So it's pretty cool to be able to, just chat with people and get to know people all over the world. I know there's people signed up for this webinar literally all over the world. So I know some of you will be joining us in the replay that are so far away from my West Coast time zone over here. But, just the fact that we can connect with people in every country basically I think is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. So thank you, those of you who've joined in so far. And like I said, we'll get started in about 10 minutes. Okay, so we have some more people joining in here. I'm just here to say hi and, have a little chat before we really get started. Super excited to meet all of you and to share some great actionable information about journaling and having a daily spiritual practice. So we'll get started right at 3 o'clock. But if you have pre-questions, things you're interested in, things you want me to talk about, I'm flexible. So pop into the live chat and let me know what you need. If you're on the witchoflupenhollow.com site, on the live page there, you'll have the chat boxes right below this video. When you click on it, it'll probably ask you to sign into your Google account if you're not already. So you'll have to sign in to be part of the chat. But it's just YouTube's owned by Google, like everything else. But not me. Let's be real here. Just using their software. So for those of you just joining us, we'll get started at 3 o'clock, just a few minutes now. But I encourage you to grab a cup of tea, settle in, get comfy. We're going to have a super fun chat today, and pop into the live chat, and ask questions. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you need, what your needs are as a modern witch and in developing your spiritual practice. So jump in there and let me know what you're working on. Oh, so exciting to see so many people jumping in. First webinar excitement. Okay, a few more people signing in here to watch the webinar. So for those of you just joining us, if you're on the Witch of Lupin Hollow live site, the chat box is right below the video. So you can just click on that and it'll probably ask you to sign into your Google account. Sorry, a couple of you heard me say this a few times now. But you can sign in and then it'll let you participate in the live chat. You can ask questions and introduce yourself. So make sure you jump in there, say hello, tell me, where you're from, what your challenges are with daily spiritual practice, and maintaining that. And also, what your experience is with journaling. We're going to have people of all different backgrounds and spiritual beliefs here today. So it's just pretty exciting. It's pretty cool. We can connect with people from all over at any point, thanks to the internet. I'm not a techno witch myself, but I think it's pretty cool nonetheless. So make sure you sign in and jump into the live chat. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes here, 3-4 minutes. And I will formally introduce myself and we will get started. So super excited to meet all of you. Make sure you say hello and introduce yourself. And grab a cup of tea. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for signing in. How are you doing today? All right, we've got some more new people here. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Hi, Sarah. Awesome. Happy to have you here today, along with everybody else. Super excited. What are you most excited to learn about today? We're going to learn so many cool things today, guys. I'm super excited to share some information about my own spiritual practice and, about how you can create one of your own. It's helpful to hear from other people, what they're doing. But, the most important thing, the goal is to create something that's unique to you, unique to your beliefs. And today we're talking about how to use journaling to do that. Yeah. And, that's a great point, Sarah, that, a lot of us are trying to get back into it. It's often something that we've started at some point in our lives. And for whatever reason, we've gotten out of the habit, we've gotten out of the practice of doing it. And that's the case with daily spiritual practices in general. It's not just journaling. I'm going to talk in a minute here about how I've fallen on and off the wagon of, not just journaling, but my spirituality, and how I've finally learned some ways to really maintain it. So we're definitely going to talk about that. And hi, Trista. Oh my gosh, all the way from Newfoundland. That's so cool. I love connecting with people all over the world on the internet. Okay. All right. So I think we're going to kind of go ahead and get started. So a little tiny bit of housekeeping here. So for those of you that are on the witchofloopandhollow.com live page for this webinar, the chat box is directly below the video. That is through YouTube. So this webinar is being hosted through YouTube. So if you click on the live chat to sign in, it's probably going to ask you to sign into your Google account because YouTube is owned by Google. So let me know if you're having any issues with that, but it should be pretty simple. It may, when you click on it, it may take you to the main YouTube page, in which case I think the live chat is to the right of the video screen. So your chat is either below the video or to the right. So you can sign in, jump in, ask questions at any point. And we're going to have a special, like 5-10 minutes of specific Q&A at the very end of the webinar. So you can, ask me to clarify things throughout. But also, you can ask questions at the very end about your own practice, ask for some advice. ask for some help from me and from the rest of the community on here. So make sure you sign in. So everybody, it's 3 o'clock. So we're going to get started. We're going to jump in here. So I recommend you get a cup of tea or, coffee if that's what you're into, and settle in, get comfy. We're going to have a really cool discussion today. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Tanae. I'm the Witch of Lupin Hollow. I've been a blogger for on and off for years, but I've had the Witch of Lupin Hollow blog for about 3 years. And I write all about modern magic, how to be a modern witch, how to connect with your spirituality. And today we're talking about specifically how to record your daily spiritual practice through journaling. So you are in the right place if you want to create a daily spiritual practice that is unique to your own lifestyle, your own beliefs, and your own needs. It's really important to take your own life into consideration. You're also in the right place if you want to specifically, in terms of journaling, really customize the way you work with your journal. This isn't so much about individual journal prompts as it is ways for you to create a way to work with your journal. So super customizable. You're also in the right place if you're a more advanced witch or more advanced spiritual practitioner. Maybe you already have a daily spiritual practice, but you're going to learn some ways to really expand and advance the way that you work with your journal or grimoire, and the way that you have a daily practice and the kinds of things that you're doing on a daily basis. So by the end of this webinar, you should be able to, the main actionable tip here is going to be how to set up a regular journal as your working grimoire. So your daily magical and spiritual journal. You're also going to be hopefully excited to develop a daily spiritual practice, something that is unique to you, and that you can be excited about. And you and I are going to be new witchy BFFs. So that's going to be fun too. Okay, so hi to everybody that's signing in here. So a little bit about me before we really get started. So I am a practicing cottage witch, and I have been since 2011, so quite a while now. And I have kind of fallen on and off the spiritual wagon for a long time. So when I first got started, there wasn't a lot of information out there about how to create your own daily spiritual practice. There was tons of information on the internet and in books about, how you could work with Wicca or Druidism, established spiritual traditions, but there wasn't a lot about how to really make something your own. And so there was all of these people out there saying that they were eclectic witches, was kind of the most common term at the time. But there wasn't anybody really sharing how they got to that point, and how they learned to create their own eclectic path. And so it really became my mission once I figured that out, and once I figured out how to do it, once I did the research and work myself, I really made it my mission to help other modern witches create their daily spiritual practice. And so the way that I figured it out was after kind of falling on and off the wagon for years, mostly for 2 reasons. Partly because I wasn't really out of the broom closet, and I wasn't comfortable practicing openly. And I lived with other people. And so I wasn't really sure how to create a very subtle daily spiritual practice. And that's, of course, a challenge that a lot of modern witches have. So a lot of you may have that struggle as well. And so that was part of my issue. The other part of my issue was that I simply didn't have a daily spiritual practice to begin with. So not only was I having trouble creating one, but the fact that I didn't have one made it hard for me to maintain my daily spiritual experience. And so I would kind of, I might check in at the full moon or a Sabbat, but I wasn't engaging with my spirituality on a daily basis. And so it became harder and harder to feel connected. And so it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I really recommitted to my practice and the way that I did that, I learned all sorts of things. I signed up for all sorts of programs and read all kinds of new books and really got into it. And the way that I really managed to finally create a spirituality that I feel connected with regularly was by creating this daily journaling practice. And so I created a, daily journaling system. So I have a couple of different journals that I work with on a regular basis, but my daily journal is what I call my Chronicle Grimoire. So this is just a simple, lined notebook that I write down my spiritual experience in almost every day. I'll be real. It doesn't happen every single day. And we're going to talk about that it's okay if, you're not actually practicing every single day. Your daily practice is about trying to practice every day and committing to doing that. But it's okay when you don't. So my Chronicle Grimoire is my daily journal. And then I also have other journals. In my practice, I work with the moon, I work with herbs, I do yoga. So I have different journals for different functions within my practice, but the Chronicle Grimoire is my working daily interaction. And so it was when I started to really develop that system that I really learned to create this, engaging practice every day and to be able to commit to that. So I'm going to share kind of how to go about doing that today, with you so that you can take those tips and put them into action in your own life and your own spiritual practice. So the first thing that when you start journaling, the first big thing is, this big question of what are you going to journal about? And so I have tons of ideas for you. So we're going to share a bunch in the webinar. But at the end of the webinar, too, we're also going to talk about a new program that I have, which is called Developing Your Daily Spiritual Practice. And for those of you interested in signing up in the program, at the end of the webinar, I'm going to talk about some bonuses for people who sign up now. And the bonuses are all about journaling. They're actually printable workbooks to help you really get started and dive deep into figuring out what your daily spiritual journaling practice looks like. So stay tuned to the end of the webinar for more information about that. But first, we have tons of ideas for you. I have tons of ideas for you, me and the mouse in my pocket. Okay, so when you first get started, your biggest question is, what am I supposed to write about? I was a journal collector for years. I always had tons of blank journals. I loved the idea of journals, but I didn't write in them because I had fear of the blank page. I was terrified as a Virgo to make a mistake. I didn't want to put pen to paper and screw up this beautiful blank page with my own mistakes. And so a lot of people, I think, feel that way. And so I found the way that I kind of overcame that fear is when you really dedicate a journal to a specific purpose, it's much easier to allow mistakes to be made because those mistakes are part of the purpose. They're part of the process. And so in a way, having a daily journal is dedicated to recording your mess. It's dedicated to recording your mistakes and your triumphs. But it's okay to record your mistakes because that's part of the point. And so, you're going to make mistakes. And so it's important to realize that and to accept that as part of your spirituality. Your spirituality is not a perfect snow globe. Doesn't live in its own vacuum. And so you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make errors in judgment sometimes, or just in, a typo on the page or an ink blot, or do we still have ink blots in 2018? Is that a thing? I guess so. But so recording your mistakes is actually totally a spiritual experience. And so by doing that, writing down your mistakes, you give yourself the opportunity to reflect and look back. And that's a great point that Trista just brought up in the live chat, is that sometimes it's really easy to only write about the negative stuff that's happening in your life. And so you tend to, you're pouring out your thoughts, but then when you look back at it, it seems like nothing good ever happened. So it's important to find a balance. You want to really make sure that you are talking about, your spiritual experience, the good stuff, the things that made you feel really connected, and that you're allowing yourself to understand and embrace your mistakes. So, by writing those down, you're giving yourself the opportunity to reflect on them. And we're going to talk more about self-reflection a little bit later in the webinar. So the first step, of course, is just to start writing. And so when you first start, I think it's best if you just write everything down. Write down everything you do. And you're not always going to do that. But when you're first starting to journal, you're creating a record for yourself. And so your first grimoire page is going to look very different than your 100th page, your 100th entry. And the reason for that is because your daily spiritual practice is going to evolve. It's going to adapt. If you don't evolve and adapt, you just shrivel up, like that you're no longer engaging with yourself in your current moment. And so it's really important to find this balance between being able to reflect and look at, this is where I've been and this is where I've come from, and understanding that where you've come from has an influence on where you are now, but that you are now in a new place. So I hope that makes sense, that there's kind of this balance between the past and the present versions of you and of your spiritual practice. So the biggest question, of course, is just sort of, okay, so I'm going to allow myself to make mistakes. I'm going to allow myself to fill up this journal, and I'm going to understand that my practice and myself are going to evolve. So now what do I write about? Okay, so I think that the best place to start, and this is just kind of my personal opinion, and it's important to realize that you're not going to be able to do it all. You're not going to be able to write about every single thing that interests you. But if you can write about everything that interests you right now and then slowly narrow that down, you're going to end up with a practice that feels really personal to you. And so I think the best place to start is with dream journaling. And the reason for that is not just because we all have dreams, not just because it's kind of a universal concept, but also because dream journaling helps you to create the habit of something that's daily. So every morning you get up and you have slept through the night and you have dreamt. You may not always remember your dreams, but you've always dreamt. And so dream journaling helps you to strengthen your intuition by helping you to more regular dreams, making it a very spiritual endeavor, but it also helps you to create of journaling every day. So the best advice I can give is to write your dreams down first thing in the morning, because you're much less likely to remember them if you wait until later in the day. And then also to make sure you do write something down. This is twofold. On the one hand, you have to kind of train yourself to consider remembering your dreams important, but you also have to create that habit. That's the idea here, is to also habitual. So dream journaling is one really great place to start. So, you can write down your dreams, write down everything you remember. And then also, sorry, I think I might be having some audio issues. Thanks, Cindy. I hope it's a little better now. It just gotten a little closer to the microphone. It's important to write them down, but then to also kind of think about them and analyze them. So, if you write down your dream and then put a little bit of thought into it about, what do you think it means? What do you think caused it? Where do you think it's coming from? Do you think it's intuitive, or is it, somehow influenced by where you've been, something in your day, something you saw or experienced? So, it's important to write it down and then also put a little more thought into it. Think about it a little bit. The next kind of journaling that I would totally recommend everybody practice at some point is tarot journaling. And I should clarify that this doesn't only apply to tarot. It also applies to divination of various kinds. So whether you cast runes or scry with a pendulum, whatever it is that you do, you can apply the same basic concepts. But personally, in my practice, it's tarot journaling. And so the idea here is, just like with dream journaling, is to create a daily habit. And in this case, it's a daily habit of doing divination. So we tend to think of divination as kind of a special occasion practice. It's something we do on the full moons or on the sabbats. But the reality is that reading the tarot cards and doing other kinds of divination can be done every single day. And just like by doing a daily dream journaling practice, you can also, create this daily habit of strengthening your intuition and of relying on your intuition and trusting it. And so daily tarot journaling is a great way to both strengthen your intuition and, get to learn the tarot cards better, and also to give yourself a greater room to see patterns. So, if you only pull tarot cards once or twice a month, you're only getting, this little bit of data. But if you're pulling a card every single day, even if your only question is, what do I need to know for the day? It's going to help you see that, oh, I've pulled this same card 6 times this month. It probably is really meaningful to me and is really trying to tell me something. And so that concept of doing divination every day, I think, is really powerful because it takes away this kind of untouchable quality about divination and about magic and makes it part of your daily existence. And it is important to note that you don't have to be really informed about divination. You don't have to know all of the meanings of the tarot cards or what all the meanings of the rune symbols are in order to do this. You can rely on the book that comes with your tarot deck or anything like that until you get to where you feel comfortable reading it only based on your own intuition. And I would say that a great way to do that is to sort of write down, what you think the card means, what it in kind of intuitive hit you get from it. And then to look up what the real meaning is, the traditional meaning, and write that down as well, because both can be very insightful. So divination journaling is a big one that I think can really help people create a daily practice of both journaling and magic. Another way, and this is just from my own personal practice, I work a lot with the moon and with astrology in general. And so this is something that, it's happening every day. And so it gives you something to write about every day. So you can write down what sign and phase the moon are in and what that means. It's important not to just write it down without giving it any further consideration, but write down what the moon is doing. You can also write down what other planets are doing. You can write about the planetary transits, where is Jupiter in relation to Mars and what does that mean? There's so much that's happening daily on an astrological level that, depending on how interested you are in astrology, that can be a great way to really have a daily journaling practice. The moon is probably the easiest thing to do it with because the moon moves into a new sign every 2.5 days, whereas the other planets move much more slowly. So you don't want to kind of burn yourself out writing the same stuff all the time, which is why I recommend the moon. But if you are more deeply into astrology, you could write about the other daily things that are happening, the aspects that the planets are making to each other and things like that. So dream journaling, tarot or divination journaling, astrological insights, all of these are great ways to journal on a daily basis. Another thing to think about is to journal about your self-care practice. For me, the reason that I started blogging about magic and witchcraft was to hold myself accountable, to help myself create a daily spiritual practice, really is what it boils down to. And so, hold yourself accountable to care for yourself. Self-care is very much a buzzword, but it's a buzzword for a reason. It helps us to really create, to make it important to care for ourselves and to honor our own needs. So this kind of goes back to what Trista was saying in the chat about, sometimes it's easy to only write about the negative. So think about writing about the nice things you did for yourself today. And that might be as simple as, you told somebody, no, you couldn't do something. You couldn't take on a project, or you couldn't go do something because you needed time for yourself. Or it might be, you got a spa treatment, or you spent some time with someone you really love. Whatever that looks like in your life, writing down something good you did for yourself today, something positive that happened to you today. Self-care journaling is a great way to kind of incorporate the positive aspects of your life into your journal. It's important to work on the shadow, to work on your shadow self, and to figure out, where you're struggling with things and why. But it's also important to acknowledge the positivity that is in your life. You have to kind of find that balance in everything, and journaling is no different. So in terms of writing about your own topics, these are some of the topics that I write about in my own daily journaling practice. But it's really important to not just say, okay, well, Tanae said that I should be dream journaling, and do it just because. It's important to think about the things that are actually important to you and important to your spirituality. And so you might think, okay, well, now I know how to dream journal. I know how to write about the tarot, but how do I write about something else entirely? So I have 3 kind of tips for you for that. The first is to just write down what it is, write down what you did. So I'm going to take yoga as an example, because this is something that's a little bit, it's the body, you're physically moving your body. And of course there's a mental aspect to yoga, but it doesn't lend itself quite as easily to journaling. And so as an example, we're gonna talk about how you could journal about yoga, and feel free to ask, about other specific topics in the Q&A at the end of the webinar. I'd be happy to give you some ideas. So with the yoga example, you're going to write down what you did. So you're going to write down how long your yoga practice was that day. You're going to write down what types of poses you did. Did you focus on shoulders or hips or heart opening poses? And then you're also going to write down, you might at least write down not just what type of poses, but you might also write down what individual poses. You might say, well, I did pigeon pose and I did king dancer pose and I did this and that, right? So you're going to write down what you did. And then you're going to write down why you did it and why it was spiritual. So with the yoga example, you might think about something very esoteric, like, why do you do yoga? Why does it feel spiritual in general to you? But you might on a daily basis also think about, like, why did you do those specific poses? Was it your teacher guiding you and maybe you did or didn't really want to do that pose, or you were doing it on your own? Why did you choose to do that pose? Why was it spiritual? Why did it make you feel connected or not connected? And then the third thing is the how. How did you feel about it? So much of our spirituality is tied to our emotional self, which is ruled by the moon. It's a huge part of magic and witchcraft and spirituality in general. And so ask yourself, how did it make me feel? Did it make me feel spiritual? Did it make me feel joyful? Did it make me feel sad? What did I feel about it? How did I feel about it? So with the yoga example in particular, yoga teachers always like to say, feel through your body and find where the energy is stagnant. Find where things are blocked up or knotted up. And take your breath there and try to let go of whatever's holding you back there. So think about that. Think about what stagnant energy did you feel in your body and how did you go about releasing it? Why do you need to release it? Why do you think that part of your body might be stagnant? Is it tied to something more esoteric, or is it tied to, a physical need that your body is something your body's needing from you? So that's kind of my best advice for creating your own journaling progress on your own spiritual topics is write about the what did you do? Write about the why was it spiritual? And write about the how did you feel about it? So you can apply this to basically any spiritual topic, any activity that you do that's part of your spiritual practice, you can write about in this way. So definitely ask questions about that in the Q&A. I'd be happy to help you kind of work through, this is something I'm interested in. How do I go about journaling about it? Okay, so now that we have some ideas about what to journal about, which is the biggest question, I want to give you some tips as well about how to set up your journal. What to use, how you can write about it, or how you can write in it. So before we do that, I just want to quickly define 2 terms that I've been using in this webinar. The first is a journal. So a journal is a book in which you record your thoughts and ideas. You can have a journal about anything, right? You can have journals in school, you can have journals for work, you can have personal journals. It's just something where you write down your thoughts. A grimoire, on the other hand, which is sometimes also called a book of shadows, is a book in which you record your magical and spiritual experience. So I use the two terms interchangeably, which isn't totally accurate in some cases, because people tend to think of these as, a grimoire is a type of journal, but not all journals are grimoires. It's kind of the rectangle square question. But I use them interchangeably because the type of journaling that we're talking about here is spiritual journaling. And so the idea is not just to have, just any old notebook. The idea is to have a working grimoire, a grimoire that you engage with on a daily basis. And so by doing that, it kind of takes away the untouchable quality about a grimoire. So I hear witches say this all the time, that they have this, beautiful journal they bought, or this beautiful, tea-stained pages tome, this beautiful thing that they made or created or purchased, and they don't want to use it because, like we talked about before, they don't want to mess it up. So it is totally acceptable to have something that you only write in occasionally, that you work with, when needed, but not all the time. And that is kind of a special occasion grimoire. That is, you can totally have that. But it's also important to have this working grimoire, this sort of day-to-day grimoire that you don't feel that way about, that you feel totally fine writing in every day. And that is, a daily engaging part of your practice. So when you choose a journal, you want to keep that in mind. You want to keep its function in mind. So you want to think about, what kind of binding you want, what kind of pages you want. So I want to just show you my journals really quick here. So the two main journals that I work with are, like I said, my Chronicle Grimoire, which is my daily journal. So this is my working grimoire in the truest sense. So I like to use a hardcover journal. It feels a little bit more formal than a soft cover for me. And I like to have a coil bound journal for this one, for my Chronicle. And the reason for that is because when you have a daily journal, it's really helpful for it to be able to lay flat and to be able to close all the way around. So that's my own personal preference, is I like a hardcover, coil bound, lined journal. Depending on what your function is, you might prefer soft cover. You might prefer, perfect bound pages. You might even prefer something like a composition book that it has kind of a soft paperback or bound, soft bound frame binding, or that, but also lays flat. Sorry, that was a garbled sentence there. Eileen, a Moleskine softcover is a great option. Moleskine is an awesome company. They produce beautiful journals that are really simple and easy to use. And that's a great example too, because they produce journals that come in all different kinds of interiors. So I like a lined journal. I like to write. However, you might prefer something that's more like a sketchbook with totally blank pages. If you like to doodle and draw in your journals. You might prefer something with like graph paper or a dotted page, which is really popular for people doing bullet journals. So if you're doing that sort of work, you might prefer that type of page. So you want to really think about the interior and the exterior of your physical journal. Just as another example, this is what I call my lunar grimoire, which is also a working grimoire of sorts, except rather than using it every day, I only use it at the new and full moons for my rituals. And so this one is much more formal. You can see it has a very nice hardcover binding with a perfect bound spine. That's the word I was looking for, spine. And it's lined pages. It has the gold foil on the edge. So it's much more formal, but it's still a working grimoire in its own way. I still write in it at least twice a month. It has a ribbon. This is important for me because I don't like to flip around. I like to have a bookmark. So that's something that I prefer. So you just want to think about the function. What is it going to do? What are you going to use it for? So think about, the function of your journal, and then also think about the fact that because it's a working grimoire, you are going to fill it up. So this journal isn't just going to be, you're going to write in it, and when it's filled, you're going to stop using a journal. Like, you're going to keep doing this, hopefully, indefinitely. This is part of your spiritual practice. And so you might consider, if you're purchasing something, you might consider buying a couple of it if you really like the one that you found. I always make this kind of mistake where I'm like, oh, I like this journal, and I buy one of it. And then when I use it up, I'm like, damn, I can't find it again. So I then have to buy something different. So you might think about that. You might consider buying a couple of volumes for your working grimoire. So once you have a journal picked out, you want to dedicate it. So like I said, with your working grimoire, you want to dedicate it to recording your mess. That is part of its purpose. But you also want to dedicate it to recording, the beauty of your spiritual practice. So whatever phrasing works for you, you want to make sure that this journal is used only for this function, and that it is a spiritual, sacred space of its own. So the first step of that, of course, is to cleanse the book after you've purchased it or made it. You'll lay it on your altar and sprinkle a ring of salt around it is a great way to do it. Create a whole ritual around cleansing and dedicating your journal. You could, of course, cleanse it with like sage or cedar smoke. Whatever works for you, whatever makes sense for your spirituality. Cleanse the book, make it part of your practice, part of your sacred space. And then you could consider having sort of a blessing or dedication page. So in my lunar grimoire here, this is sort of the dedication page. I have, it's backwards in the video, of course, but it says Lunar Grimoire, and it has sort of the moon phases drawn out here. And then what I like to do in my grimoires is I don't really write poetry myself, but I like to record poems that I love as part of my dedication. And so this particular one has a short poem about the moon from Rumi. So I have another one that has a poem from Emily Dickinson. That's how I like to do it. I also sometimes like to draw like symbols or sigils for protection. You just kind of have to find what works for you. But by doing that, it sort of takes this journal and raises it above your average everyday notebook or journal and makes it a grimoire that is dedicated to being used daily. So you sort of take everything we've talked about here and combine it into one book. Excuse me. Another thing to think about is how your interior is going to be set up. So depending on the journal, you might consider having an index and dividing it into sections. So, you write about your herbalism practice in this section, you write about the moon in this section, you write your dreams down in this section. I don't really recommend that for a working grimoire. If it works for you, awesome. But in general, I think chronological makes the most sense for a working grimoire. So both my chronicle and lunar grimoires are chronological. So however many pages I use on a particular day or a particular moon ritual, the next time I use the journal, it just starts on the next page. So it's not marked anywhere. The only real organization system is every page is dated. So that way you can refer back to a particular, time and place. The reason that I recommend chronological is because it's a great tool for self-reflection. If you can refer back to a specific time, specific day, you can more easily reflect on, what you were doing at that point and how you were doing. So that brings us to possibly the most important point I have to make today. And that is that journaling, spiritual journaling, is really at its heart, it is a tool for self-reflection. So, excuse me, I will be perfectly honest. When I used to get those self-reflection assignments in school, I would cringe. I hated them. It's like the end of the semester and your teacher brings you this piece of paper that says, self-reflect on how you think you did this semester. And you're like, well, what do you want me to say? Either I got an A or I got an F or whatever. What do you want me to say? I always hated them. And yet here I am promoting self-reflection as this great spiritual tool. And the reason is because it's not abstract in this case. So you can say, okay, I'm going to do a weekly reflection. I want to see how I did in, growth or on this particular intention or goal that I've set for the last week. So you can go back, if you have a daily journaling practice, you can go back and look at each day how you were feeling and what changed. And you can very easily reflect on that and write about it and say, okay, well, this is how I think I did. This is a summation of the week. And you can do that weekly or monthly or quarterly, however you want to do it. A few reflection times I would recommend. One would be a weekly reflection based on the moon phases. So there's the new moon, the first quarter moon, the full moon, and the second quarter, or the last quarter moon. And those take place about once a week. You have one of these phases. And so it makes it for a really easy weekly reflection to say, okay, well, today's the new moon. Last week at this time, it was the, waning quarter moon. What's changed? How have I grown or improved? Or, what am I feeling that's different? This also makes it easy to have sort of a built-in monthly reflection because, if you do this for a couple of months and then at the full moon, you can look back at last month's full moon and see, okay, well, this is how I did over the last week and this is how I did over the last month. So I find that working with the moon is a great way to go about it. Another way that you can do that is 6-month reflections. So about every 6 months, the moon will be in either the new or full moon in the same sign that it was in the opposite phase 6 months ago. So for example, the new moon in Scorpio is coming up. So about 6 months ago, the full moon was in Scorpio. And so that is a great way to sort of look back and say, okay, 6 months ago, a significant moon phase was in this same sign that we're now experiencing. How have I grown? Especially considering the energies of that particular sign. So with Scorpio as the example, how have I, grown in my magic? How have I grown in embracing my shadow self or exploring my shadow? You want to look at the feelings and energies of that particular sign and how you've grown in those energies over 6 months. There are lots of ways to do reflection without working with the moon, however, if that's not something you're particularly interested in. So, for example, you could work quarterly, which a great way to do that would be to work with the seasons. So do a quarterly reflection on the, autumn equinox, winter solstice, etc. You could do an annual working with your, maybe your birthday or the first of the year is a great time to do reflection work. Whatever type of reflection and time period works for you, having a daily journaling practice regardless means that you can say, okay, I want to see, where was I 6 months ago? Where was I 2 years ago when you've been doing this for a while? And you can flip to a page and say, okay, here's this particular date. Oh, that's how I was feeling. Oh, that's not right. That's what I was going through at that time. And you can really see how your spiritual practice has evolved, see how you've evolved as a person and as a witch. So having a daily journaling practice has this amazing kind of overall life-changing impact, I find. So the main takeaways here are, number one, when you first get started, write everything down, explore everything that interests you, and create a daily journaling practice based on the things you are interested in. You're going to evolve, you're going to grow, and you should allow your working grimoire to grow and evolve with you. Number two, choose a journal that speaks to you and that suits the function you need it for. Consider what it's going to be used for. Consider what kind of spiritual practice you already have and what you're interested in expanding. Number three, use your daily journaling practice as a tool for self-reflection. Create a record of your spiritual journey, and you'll then be able to observe patterns and tendencies, reflect on your growth, and bear witness to your spiritual evolution. And number 4, this is the most important thing I could say to you today. Even though you are creating a daily spiritual practice, even though that's the goal, that's the hope, that's the aim, right? It is okay if you don't practice every day. I can't stress this enough. It is so important to not beat yourself up if you miss a day or a week or a month, honestly. It's so important to allow yourself the space you need to create something that works for you. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a struggle. Sometimes it takes time and patience and dedication to create something that you really can do every day. It doesn't make you a bad person or a bad witch or whatever. It just makes you human. So if you miss a couple of days in a row, don't say, oh God, I messed up. I wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to write my dreams down every day. It's okay. It is so okay. Just give yourself the space and return to your practice, recommit to it, and start again. Okay. Yes, that is absolutely true in the chat. That is a form of self-care. Giving yourself the space and the time you need. Don't make this a chore. Don't make your daily practice something that you feel guilty about not doing. The idea here is to create a practice that you want to do and that honors your needs, honors your schedule, honors who you are, honors your space. And so, that brings me to, I know from personal experience how life-changing it can be when you do get to that point, when you get to the point where you allow yourself the space you need. When you have a spiritual practice that feels personal, that feels cultivated. Yes, Michelle, I'll get to that 1 second about the spiral journal. It's really important to allow yourself to consider your environment, consider whether or not you're comfortable practicing openly, having a big altar or not. Having a practice that doesn't require you to buy a bunch of stuff or change your beliefs, or to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. Getting to that point where you've created this practice that is yours, that feels sacred and that you're excited about it's the best. Like, it is so exciting to get to that point. My practice makes me want to get up earlier. I don't always, but I feel better when I do, and I feel more fulfilled when I do, and I don't feel guilty when I don't. So Michelle, about the journal, I'm pretty sure this one's from Barnes & Noble. Honestly, Barnes & Noble, Target, even Amazon for some stuff. There are so many awesome journals out there, but I also recommend you check out your local bookstores. We have an awesome local bookstore chain in my area that carries some of my favorite journals. Like, I picked up some of my most beautiful journals there. In fact, that might be where this one came from, but this one might be from Barnes & Noble too. So, just sort of get out there and start exploring where, you might find journals and things that you're interested in. Etsy can be a really great resource too. So helping, modern witches and spiritual people like all of you to create your daily spiritual practice is the core mission of all the content I create, whether it's free content like this webinar, or blog posts, or, some of my offerings. So I do have a program that I want to tell you guys a little bit about. So it's this brand new program called Developing Your Daily Spiritual Practice. And the whole idea is to sort of build your spiritual practice from the ground up. So it's okay if you already have experience or if you're a total newbie. This program works for everybody. It's super customizable. So the program has a really strong journaling component. So if you're interested in this webinar, I see most of you have stuck around for the whole thing, so that's awesome. If you liked the content here, you're going to love the program because it's very similar. The program comes with the printed and printable Chronicle Grimoire journal that I'm in the process of creating right now. So this journal is basically, it's sort of the printed version of everything we've been talking about here. So it's sort of a workbook that guides you through the program. So it has daily, dream journaling. It has daily divination journaling. So it's going to prompt you on a daily basis to write about these things and some of the things that we've specifically talked about here. But it's also very customizable. You can easily interact with it in whatever way makes sense for you as you're building your practice. So it has daily pages and weekly pages and monthly pages. So basically, if you sign up for the program, no need to create your own journal because I'm going to provide you with one. It has, built-in monthly and weekly reflections. It has components of everything we've been talking about here today. So the program itself is 18 weeks. It has weekly video modules. So videos just like this of me talking, giving you actionable tips and ideas. It also comes with one-on-one video or phone calls with me. So you'll have the opportunity to talk with me directly about your practice in a super private setting that's just you and me, and we can talk about whatever you need to talk about with the stipulation that, I am not a certified therapist. So this is specifically about your daily spiritual practice. But, I can give you advice about your spirituality and where I think you can grow. So those one-on-one calls are going to be whatever you need them to be. And then the program also comes with a Facebook group for community support. So you'll be able to interact with me on there as well as everyone else that's in the program. So basically the structure of the program is that for the first half or so, I'll guide you through developing the 6 pillars of your practice to give you a really strong foundation. So those are working with your mind, your body, nature, divination, and devotionals. And then the 6th is we'll explore that together, what your 6th pillar is. So this is very customizable. There is basically endless options for the types of activities and interests that are the pillars of your spiritual practice. So I'll guide you through creating each one of those. And then once you have that foundation, we'll refine your daily practice even more. So you'll create morning and evening rituals. You'll learn how to adapt and evolve. So you'll learn how to adapt your daily spiritual practice to the seasons. Because a lot of times when we go from summer to winter or winter to summer, we sort of lose track because our lives change as, we have longer or less daylight, things like that. So we'll talk about that. You'll also learn how to maintain your practice even when you can't physically practice. So maybe you're sick or you're on vacation or, there's someone in your house that you're not comfortable practicing around or something like that. So you'll learn really actionable tips for how to, maintain all of that. So it's not just creating a practice and then setting you off into the world. A big part of this program is helping you to maintain your practice. Thanks, Michelle. I think it's pretty awesome too. I'm super excited. So I'm excited. I'm really honored to be helping modern witches, develop their own core foundation of their practice. So basically the details here are the programs in pre-registration. I'm in the process of creating all of the videos and the Chronicle Grimoire journal right now. So the program will fully launch in January. The weekly videos and all the content, the Facebook group. Actually, the Facebook group is live now, so anyone that joins will be able to join in there. But everything else will become available in early January. So it's available for pre-registration right now. There are 2 variations of the program. There's a self-study program that comes with 1 video or phone call with me, and then all of the content in the program. And then there's also a one-on-one option that includes more phone calls, and it comes with one of my custom moon sign readings. So this is really special because I'm only offering my moon readings through this program right now. You can't order it any other way at the moment. And so you'll receive, if you sign up for the one-on-one program, you'll receive a custom astrological reading of your natal chart that focuses on what phase the moon was in when you were born, what sign the moon was in when you were born, and what mansion it was in. And then sort of evaluating what that means for your emotional self. And then it'll help you and I to create your daily spiritual practice. So right now, I'm offering 20% off of the program to everybody as long as it's in pre-registration. So for now, everything's 20% off. That includes both one-time payments and payment plans. So for both the self-study and the one-on-one option, you can either sign up for it right now, pay one flat fee, and you have access. You're signed up, or you can do the payment plan. So if you do the payment plan, it's by the time you get to the actual program starting in early January, you'll have paid it almost halfway off. So both great options. The program is 18 weeks. So the journal and the videos are designed to be worked on over 18 weeks, but it won't start till January. So it'll be, I guess that's January, February, March, I think. March and April, actually. So it'll be all of kind of late winter, early spring will be the first round of the program. So super exciting. In addition to the 20% off that if you sign up during pre-registration, if you sign up, those of you who've registered for this awesome webinar that's been super fun, if you sign up by 11:59 on Monday, November 5th, that's 11:59 Pacific time, you are going to receive 3 bonus, Cynthia, thank you. You're really sweet. So the cost of the program depends on whether or not you do the self-study or the one-on-one program, as well as whether or not you sign up for the one-time payment or the payment plan. So there's a button right below this video on the live webinar page on witchofloopinhollow.com, or it's also in the menu bar of the main website that says developing your daily spiritual practice. And the prices for the one-time payment and the payment plan for both variations of the program, everything's on there. But if you sign up, today or tomorrow or Monday before 11:59 Pacific time, you're also going to receive 3 bonus fillable PDF workbooks. So you can print them or you can fill them in digitally. So these workbooks, there's the Dream Journal workbook, which is, to help you strengthen your intuition and get in the habit of a daily dream journaling practice, sort of recording and analyzing your dreams. There's the self-care workbook, to help you consciously care for yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So this goes back to what we were talking about, sort of writing down the positive and the negative, helping you to, work through challenges and record the good things that are happening in your life. And then also the Tarot Journal workbook. So this is specific to tarot, but you could easily adapt it to other divination forms if that's what you're more interested in. So this is to help you, get in the habit of doing divination daily and, help you form a connection to your tarot cards. So basically the program is 20% off through pre-registration. And if you sign up now because of through the webinar, you're going to receive these 3 bonus PDF workbooks, and you're going to get those workbooks right away. So even though the program doesn't fully launch until January, you're going to get the workbooks immediately and can start, getting started and getting excited for the program to start. So I think that's everything that I have to tell you guys about. Go ahead and jump into the chat if you have any more questions. I've answered a few along the way here, but happy to answer any more questions. So I'll keep Q&A open for 5 or 10 minutes here. So feel free to jump in and let me know what you want to know more about. You can ask about the program or anything we've talked about during the webinar. Need a cup of tea after this. Yeah, I definitely go back to my old journals. Actually, the shelf right here that's under this one that you can see has a ton of old journals on it. So this was actually my first Chronicle grimoire. So this one is, about from when I first started about 3 years ago. And it started with, so this is a good one. So it used to be, let's see if I can find it. Because tea is a big part of my spiritual practice. And so I used to record how many cups of tea I drank every day, which was kind of frightening because I drank a lot of tea. Well, maybe it's not in this. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I used to, you can kind of see it here. I used to write down what tea I drank that day, and then I would draw little cups for how many I drank. I quickly realized that it didn't really matter to me how many cups I drank. It's not like I was trying to reach a goal. I and not every cup is a spiritual experience. You know, I drink tea at my desk while I'm at work. So I realized that it didn't really matter as much to me. And so it was really interesting to kind of look at these old journals and say, okay, this is something that used to be important to me and isn't anymore, something I don't do anymore. So that's kind of goes back to the self-reflection, using your journals for self-reflection. Okay, yes. So this particular program is, you can totally use it if you don't identify as a witch. You know, I tend to use the term witch because it's what I identify with, and it's what a lot of my readers identify with, but not everyone does. So I'm going to be releasing some new programs in the new year that will be more witch specific. But this one in particular is very much any spirituality is going to be able to use this. So like I said, certain aspects of the program are going to focus on, you know, divination and, you know, working with nature and things like that. But you can adapt that. I'm going to work with each individual participant to adapt those things so they make sense for you. They're meant to be totally universal and customizable. So the short answer, Kristen, is yes, you definitely do not have to identify as a witch for the program to make sense for you. Awesome. So great to hear from all of you and connect with all of you. I want to thank everybody for coming and for asking great questions and for listening to me talk for the last hour. So yeah, since we're talking about old journals, I'm going to flip through and show you guys some old things as well. So some different things that I've done is this might be the same page we were just looking at, is I like to draw a box when I do tarot readings. I like to draw a box and then write in the box what the card is. It kind of helps me break up my pages. I get really kind of bored and, you know, have to break up all the text. Okay, any particular reference guide you like for dream interpretation? So dream interpretation is a little bit different from what my own practice is. So I mostly work with just intuition. So I know there's some great, I think Llewellyn, which is a great like spiritual book publisher, they have some good books about like what dreams are supposed to mean, sort of universal topics. But the way that I teach dream journaling and the way that I have dream journaling in my own practice is more sort of writing down what you actually dreamt, and then not so much analyzing it based on universal concepts, but analyzing it based on your own life. So it's sort of more digging into what intuitive hit, you know, what you're intuitively feeling about that dream. But for specific dream interpretation, I would check out llewellyn.com. Michelle, yes, I will be sending a printed journal in the mail. So for those that sign up for the program, whether the self-study or one-on-one, it comes with both. You'll receive both a PDF journal through your email that you can print, or you'll be able to fill it in digitally, and you'll receive a printed journal. So I'm still in the process of developing the journal. I'm not exactly sure what they're gonna physically look like. On the page, the sales page for the program that details all the information, the payments and everything, there is a picture, sort of a mock-up of what the journal is going to look like. That is the real cover. So that is what the cover will look like. And then I'm not sure what the binding is going to be and all of that. But it will be a physical journal. So you'll get, and it'll be, I think it's going to be a 6-month journal. So it'll go for a little longer than the program itself, which is 4.5 months. So you'll be able to kind of keep using that one, and then there'll be options for, you know, how to develop your own journal after that. Yeah, I'm really excited to have a printed product. Like, I can't wait to use it myself. Let's see if there's any other good stuff in this journal we could share here. One thing that I've done a lot is use programs that I've signed up for. So programs like this one that I'm creating, but programs that I've done through other people's, programs that they've hosted, is I'll, use their journal prompts that, have suggestions about what to write about. So using journal prompts is also a good way to keep up your daily practice when you're not sure what else to write about. Michelle, yes. So regardless, even if you don't sign up right away, you will receive access to the Facebook group when you sign up. If you sign up today, tomorrow, or Monday, if you sign up before Monday at 11:59 p.m., you will also receive the 3 bonus printable workbooks. So you'll get the Dream Journal workbook, the Tarot Journal workbook, and the Self-Care workbook. And those 3, you'll get them right away. I'll send them to your email. You'll be able to get started playing around with those. They're printable and fillable, so you'll be able to use them on the PDF as well. Hi, Heather. So yeah, crystal work is a great one. I work with crystals a lot. You can see I've got crystals right over here. So crystals, it depends on how you work with them. You might consider them sort of a body practice if you like place them on the body or hold them, and that's, as part of meditation. Or you might consider them, a sort of a divination. People use, crystal pendulums for divination. So it sort of depends on how you work with the crystal as to where it fits into your spiritual practice. But crystals, in terms of using them as part of your journaling practice, you could certainly have, specific crystals that you place on your journal when it's closed and not in use, or you could, have a particular crystal that's like attached to the pen that you use to sort of cleanse and infuse your writing with magic. Crystals are a great tool that you can use in pretty much any way. So you can either, write about crystals, or you can use them as part of your journaling practice. I also use crystals. I use them mostly. I like hold them during meditation. And so I also have another journal that is kind of more of my traditional grimoire where I record information about topics. And so I have a crystal directory that is only crystals I own, crystals that are in my own collection. And I write down information about, their magical correspondences and their astrological information, what planet rules this crystal, as well as scientific information about the crystal. So things like, where in the world it's found and how it's formed, things like that. So lots of ways you can work with crystals. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for joining us. You're so welcome, Heather. Thank you to everybody for showing up. These are awesome questions. I'm super happy to help all of you get started with your daily practice. And hopefully I'll get to work with some of you in the program too. Awesome. I would love to work with you, Michelle. That would be super exciting. Okay, so I think we're going to close it out here. So I'm going to send an email to everybody with the replay, so you can come back and watch any portion that you want to watch again, or, watch it for the first time if you weren't able to join us. And feel free to, email me or, catch me on Instagram, ask any questions about the program, the Developing Your Daily Spiritual Practice program, or about journaling in general and having a daily spiritual practice. So catch me in email or Instagram are usually the best ways to get a hold of me. Thank you everyone for attending. And don't forget, if you sign up by Monday, November 5th, 11:59 Pacific time for the Developing Your Daily Spiritual Practice, you'll receive the 3 free bonus workbooks. You'll receive them right away. So thank you, everyone. This was so much fun. I can't wait to do it again. So have a great day.